Hey, it's Mark Dubois, the General Director of MSF UK. Day two of my trip to Papua New Guinea. This morning I got up pretty early and made it over to the airport. I was going to take a flight up to Tari in the highlands of Papua New Guinea. The highlands of Papua New Guinea, it's just one of these magical places. It's about as undiscovered by the West or untouched by Western civilization as is possible. I think it was only in like 1935 that sort of the outside world actually discovered there's this whole population of people up there. Some of them are still using stone tools to this day. So I was pretty psyched to go up there, also just to actually get into our project and see what we're doing there. We're running a surgical program with quite a bit of surgery related to violence, extreme violence, and I'll tell you about that on another day. But got to the airport and was told that the plane was blocked. The seats were blocked, the remaining seats anyway, and that's never a very good sign. And one thing led to another, and it turns out that they were shipping some bodies back up there today. I guess people from that area who died down here. And one thing led to another, and I was bumped off the plane. And as I was heading back with all this luggage, having spent about 3 hours in the airport, I remember having this feeling of well, being a bit depressed about it, having come all this way. We're certainly a long way from London, and not being able to get up to Tari because there were no further flights. It looked like I wasn't going to be able to get there at all. This sort of sense of loss of a place in the world that I wasn't going to see. And I guess in some ways I was just feeling sorry for myself. And it kind of kicked in this question that a lot of people ask all the time. People ask, how can you do this work, this humanitarian work where you're always coming in touch, confronted with just the misery. Constant misery is, I guess, the way people picture it. And the misery of people, of IDPs, internally displaced people, of refugees, of victims of natural disaster. And they think, most of you out there will think that somehow being a humanitarian involves, just this non-stop kind of, difficulty or confrontation with this miserable world. And reminded me of two things the kind of to dispel that myth. And the first is, as things happen over here, flights canceled, you spend 3 days in an airport every now and then waiting for a flight. And it kind of helps you live in a world like London where you can see people getting pretty upset about what in the end are fairly minor inconveniences, because when you are confronted with the situations that people have had to endure, that people live in, you've kind of realized that the little inconveniences that I have around my life in London, the tube not showing up for 15 minutes, being late for work, those kinds of things, they get put into their proper perspective. And it doesn't mean that the problems we have aren't serious problems. It just means that they get put into their proper perspective. And I think one of the things that being involved in humanitarian action helped me to do was actually just feel a lot less stressed about the problems, inconveniences, and everything else about the world I live in. But the second thing, and it's a little bit more personal. I don't know if this is the case for other humanitarians, and that is that we do our work inherently brings us in contact with people who are in some ways the victims of the worst side of humans, of brutality that is indescribable and unfathomable. To understand, to see just how horrible people can be to other people and the suffering that it causes is very difficult. But one thing that I don't think most people outside of humanitarian action get a chance to see is that every day you run into these same populations and in abject poverty, in the misery, hopelessness, and despair of having had their homes burned down, the grief of loved ones missing or been murdered right before them. Be right there, and how in the end all of that is somehow also. I'm losing the word for it. But what you also see is that people in those conditions also are in touch with their most human side, and you see absolutely astonishing acts of grace and generosity. People sharing their last food. A woman with 3 or 4 starving children of her own taking in the 4 children of our neighbor as if they were our own. That kind of human behavior that actually is the best we have to offer. And you see that, and it's a privilege to see it. It's a real gift to see what we're capable of. And it's one of the things that keeps me going. Cheers. Yep, I'm coming.